Hello.
Hello again. On. Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hey there. How are all of you?
Very well.
Doing, Katie, we're conducting this as an open meeting. So before we get started, we're gonna do town business that Nate'll handle, and then I'll um, give us all a lay of the land, and we can get started with our conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the interview with Locality for the Belchertown Branding Committee to order at 3:02 p.m. I'd like to have at this point a roll call, please.
Maureen Garrett Hall here.
Molly Robinson here.
Kate Nato here.
Chris Martin here.
Nate Shattuck here. And at this point, we've got Locality here with us today. Danielle, if you'd like to kick off the interview and introduction and everything, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Katie. Thank you so much for being with us. We loved your proposal and are so glad to be in conversation with you today. The way this session will go, we have about 45 minutes to ask you questions. We have questions that are pre-written in 5 categories. And for equity's sake, we are asking all of the candidates the same questions. So if you have addressed a question and it gets asked again, just know that we have some like fall safes in there in case folks didn't fully answer. So you can just say that you've addressed them and move on, and hopefully we'll all pick up on that as well. But just wanted to let you know if a question doesn't seem like it applies, you can feel free to say, sure, that applies to me. And that's totally fine. Um, at the end of asking you questions, we'll have a couple minutes for you to ask us questions. And then we will have a 5-minute public comment period. It doesn't look like any members of the public are here right now, but we'll open that up. At that point, you are welcome to go. Like we're only asking you to be here for 45 minutes to answer questions. But once you leave, if you like to leave, there will be a short public comment, and then this committee will deliberate. And that's really it. Committee members, in the interest of time, will introduce themselves as they ask their questions and share more about their role. And yeah, that's our plan for the afternoon. So thank you again for being here and for your great proposal. So I'm going to pass it to Chris to kick us off with our first question.
Hi, thank you. Just taking 2 seconds to get organized. My name is Chris Martin. I am the clerk of this branding committee. I am also the chair of the communication committee in Belchertown. So we were one of the original groups to start this discussion and get things moving with all this. So, we have a big stake in what happens with all this. So I have a couple questions on the understanding and the vision and how it, if you've done any research into Belchertown currently, to get an idea of sort of where your head's at with what we currently have. So if you have taken a look into our town seal and our branding and our website and stuff like that, we're just curious, what are your thoughts on Belchertown's current visual identity?
For sure. Well, hi, nice to meet y'all. I kind of noted it in my proposal, but I feel like it in one way can be a little bit bland. You kind of have the logo itself, which is just kind of the welcome to, or you're entering Belchertown, and then paired with the seal, which I think draws in a lot more of your history with the historic buildings and the kind of old trade history that you have. However, the seal can be a little bit busy, and I would think it can be hard to work with at times, kind of applying it to different mediums, whatever that might be. So I kind of see a blend of the two coming together where we can really, you know, make it a welcoming and more accessible logo, but also tie into your history. I'm sorry if you hear my dog. I'm at home. She's barking back in the room. Um, and tying the two together, but of course, looking for other ideas with the public of what they might have because, you have the Great Reservoir there, which isn't really pulled into your current logo or branding. You've got, just that small town feel that maybe needs to be a little bit more modern. I know the seal kind of leans more historic. So yeah, I kind of see a blend, I would say, and then see what the public thinks for sure.
All right, excellent. And my second question here is, how do you see the role of graphic design in fostering a sense of identity and pride within a community, especially in a municipal setting like Belchertown? And are there any ideas or concepts that you might consider exploring for this project?
That's a good question. Graphic design can play a role in so many ways. I feel like not only for the public to connect with, obviously with fonts and colors and general vibe and feeling, but always go back to the use as well for the town staff. So ensuring that the back end of the graphic design is set up well, easily accessible and usable for staff. So multiple logo types and all of the colors set up in existing softwares that you might already use, whether that's Microsoft to Canva to whatever it might be. So that always plays a key role. And then with that, and you guys noted this in your RP, ensuring that it meets accessibility guidelines. So that colors are contrasted well and correctly by guidelines, that fonts are easy to read, correct sizes. I think that kind of plays into with your seal being a little bit more kind of grainy and over detailed in some ways. That can probably be hard for some people to see as legible on different mediums, whether it's online or printed. Yeah, man, just graphic design as a whole and its connection. I could dig into that or write a thesis on that. But my background as an urban planner, having worked in and then with cities, I think gives me the ability to really know what you all need from your end, from the government side, and then with my experience and engagement being able to really gather those wide range of opinions and hopefully pull it into the different logo marks and colors and fonts and the kind of fun part of it all. I hope that gave a touch of graphic design in this realm.
Yeah, thank you. I believe the next question is on Kate.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? We have similar names.
Yes, we do. So I am the communications manager here in Belchertown. And the questions I have to do, the questions I'm asking of you may be best done with a screen share. So feel free to pop up a screen share if you feel that'll be helpful. So can you share examples of previous work where you have successfully navigated the challenges of branding or rebranding for municipality or rural community?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I have the proposal pulled up here, if that would be helpful. All right. Let me know if you all can see it.
I can, yes.
Okay. So this is probably the closest example I would have. This was for a mixture of groups that kind of came together. They originally were Pride of Ticonderoga up in upstate New York. So a very rural area. Their main feature in town is a river and an old bridge. You can see that was in their past logo. So it was them coming along with the Essex County Land Bank up there. The two of them kind of partnered to further this initiative. And so, yeah, it was interesting. I'm from Missouri, so I'm from rural in a whole different way, I feel like. But it was interesting to learn about their area and what rural meant to them. So we played with some initial concepts of a more kind of simplified, modern nod to what they do. So that's where you see just the NRDC with the N being a sort of door because they do a lot of revitalization work and housing work. And then, we leaned in more to their sense of place, which you see in the final logo, bring in what rural means to them, right? They have the forests and the mountains, but then they also have these old structures and historic structures that we wanted to include, and those are specific buildings that are in town that we made the illustrations from. So in the end, they were very happy with it. We're still working together. They called me to do their next annual report, which is great. But that's probably the closest to you all as far as kind of similar areas that I've rebranded for.
Thank you. So the next question, what specific strategies did you use to ensure your designs were both engaging and representative of the community's identity?
We did a variety of things with this specific client, more internal than external, which I always prefer more external involvement. So I'll kind of talk about some other projects. You should be able to see as I scroll. Yeah, so here's one that we did more survey work, both inside and outside of their organization. And that to me was key because it ended up focusing more on the area again with Chicago. We thought it might be focused more on the women's side of things or the professionalism side. But people both in and outside the organization saw it and desired for it to be representative of Chicago. So we ended up using shapes from the Wells Bridge, which is in downtown Chicago. So that one, I think that strategy worked very well because we might have gone a different direction. They actually, somebody who used to be on the board there, I'm now working with them on a different project for Transport Chicago. Same kind of thing. They're looking for a rebrand of their organization. And it happened again where we surveyed. And interestingly, the survey results wanted us to stay pretty similar to the old brand, but then the board wanted to kind of look outwards at other ideas for the brand. So I think just making sure that more voices are heard both inside and outside of organizations, towns, cities, I think is ideal.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Danielle for the next set of questions now.
I think it's to me, actually. I'm going to ask a couple on community engagement. Hi, Katie. It's nice to meet you. I'm a volunteer on this committee as well as a couple others related to culture and creativity in town. And I'm a brand strategist in my day job. So I'm very happy to be here having this conversation with you. My first question is, what methods have you employed in past projects to incorporate community feedback into your design process?
I talked a little bit about surveys already, and just to add with those, online engagement is great. Trying to get people to, take it online, but also allowing for printed versions to be at kind of key locations and or mailed to people depending on budget, slipped into utility bills, whatever kind of other strategies you all have had in the past with communications on the survey side. But like I kind of noted earlier, I'm an urban planner kind of at heart. So I've done and continue to do a lot of engagement for that side of my work as well. And I always go back to meeting people where they are. So going to places that people will already be. It's going to be very hard, I'm sure, as you all know, to get them to come to a town meeting, a public meeting, even if it is at, a recreation center or something like that. They're still great to have, great to make engaging kind of activities there. But I really push my clients to show up where their people already are. So whether that's, I think you guys have a big food truck event, your big fair, having those existing events where you're going to grab the people who would be like, yeah, I'm not going to a town meeting, and getting their thoughts on the project or the logo options or what they think of Belchertown. I think is ideal. Trying to do as many of those as possible. I know in my scope, I noted to do one kind of pop up at an existing event for this exact reason. But in all my planning days, I feel like that's where you get the most meaningful and real engagement, which I think is necessary when you're making a brand that's representing them. So.
Great. I have a couple more questions in this line of thinking. First is, where in your timeline do you see opportunities for community participation and feedback in this project?
Let me kind of look. I know that timeline was a little bit short, just from other projects and things, which I think is completely fine to do. Um, Again, I think a lot of it, if we're able and you all would want to pop up at an existing event, it would circle around those things quite a lot. If you're more open to just the typical workshops or something like that. I know I kind of had some add-ons in our proposal, regarding how much engagement, what type, but I think it would all depend on that availability of spaces, existing events, all around that.
Okay. And then lastly, how will you balance your professional design principles and vision with the community preferences and inputs? And then how would you handle feedback that could contradict your design concepts?
That is a really good question because that happens a lot, right? Uh, it's a tough one. I think with you all having the rich history and having that existing seal to kind of build from and play from, communicating that story and ensuring that people know how we got from point A to B to C, that we're not just coming up with these ideas randomly, sharing quotes from people from the survey or from the public meetings alongside the decisions that we do all make together. Um, and I think a lot goes back too to just the accessibility of it all. Why didn't we use, this kind of font versus this? Well, this one has many more options. It's more accessible for people to download and use themselves. It's not, you have to pay, $100 to use it. Um, Color choices, same thing. We live in a digital world. The contrast is very key. So why we didn't put, white text on yellow. Um, there are real reasons that I think people would understand in that way. I think if it's representing the town well, you're not going to get as many of those questions. And if they do come out of the woodwork, then we can kind of tweak and chat with people further as needed.
Thanks. Now it's over to Danielle.
Okay, so on to the broad category of deadline management and collaboration. Katie, can you tell us? I also have a snoring dog in the background, so our dogs will feel at home together. But tell us how you handle communication with clients, and if there are any time or geographic differences that emerge, how do you navigate that?
I luckily been fortunate that it's all kind of worked out. I work with clients across the country, so I'm in St. Louis, so we're on like Chicago time, Central time. Work with people on the West Coast, on the East Coast. I think as long as you plan for things ahead, that nothing can really hurt that too much. As far as kind of deadlines and collaboration, I'm open to anything. I do just emails. I do, weekly, bi-weekly meetings, phone calls. It's kind of pulling me in where is useful for you all. So if you have set meetings, you already have this great commission, which a lot of people going into branding projects do not already have. So you guys are one step ahead of the game for sure. So any existing, meetings that you have, I would just jump into as you would like.
Great. And then can you speak a little bit to deadline management and maybe share an example of a time when you had to adapt your design to meet unexpected feedback that we were talking about with Molly? So how did you manage your time and ensure that you were able to stick to deadline while getting all that community feedback?
Yeah, so I'm actually going through this right now. The APA, so the American Planning Association, here in St. Louis, it's the Missouri chapter. They're working on a conference with Arkansas as well. So I'm designing the brand for that. And they're having it at Union Station here in St. Louis, which is an iconic building, very beautiful, transportation focused, has all the things going for it. So they really thought that that's what they wanted. They wanted the station in there. They wanted the Ferris wheel behind it. They had an idea. Well, showed them all the options, and they ended up going for the simpler version that does not include the station at all. So once we finalized that, they were like, but hey, maybe we could bring in a train somewhere. So I went ahead and this has been like, I don't know, all this week. So Monday, they were like, hey, train. Tuesday, they're like, you're right, that train is too detailed. Let's try a simpler one that's more modern. Um, Yada yada. So I do all this. It's like they want to get their event going. They want to get it out there. These quick options, I just kind of quickly play with it, screenshot it, send it over, um, just so that they can get it exactly to what they want by the time they need to advertise for the event, which I think they would like to do at the end of this week. So they are, yeah, looking at train options now. But that's what I do. It's to me, that's part of the bigger picture. I'm not gonna sit here and, be like, okay, well, you have to pay me for this 15 minutes I spent attaching a train. That's just how I am. But that's how I deal with deadlines. I'm gonna meet them and then, of course, work with you all to finalize to the best that I can for you.
All right, well, pass it to Nate.
I think you might be muted.
I always do that.
Same.
Nate Shattuck, I'm chair of this committee and business owner here in town and lifelong resident. But a question regarding how do you ensure that your designs are accessible and inclusive? And can you provide example of how you've previously incorporated these principles into your work?
For sure. I think I touched on some of that a little bit. With the guidelines, I've had to use those for a variety of clients, especially working with governments. Often, they have requirements to meet. So it comes through more so I'd say like on websites. So ensuring that translation is available, size changing, text changing options are there. So I've done all of that to meet those standards. And then, yeah, I think colors and not using crazy fonts. And you can tell a client, here are your fonts to use, and they might still go and use a font that is not included and is very hard for them to read. But if you stick to the brand guidelines, which I think is helpful to have that document at the end and kind of show the yes, this is great, and no, see how this doesn't work out well. That can set, a good standard for everyone involved. And then just general kind of accessibility, diversity, nods, when I'm creating a brand style guide or just a brand in general, I do like to bring in a lot of kind of organic stock photography just to use and pair alongside the brand so that people can really get a feel and a vibe for the brand overall. So, making sure that those images are inclusive if they include people. Being a planner, I work with communities across the country in those ways, all different kinds of neighborhoods, socioeconomic backgrounds. So that's kind of my bread and butter to make sure that everyone's represented as well as I can.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
All right, thanks. And I know that in other sessions, Maureen, you were, I don't know, Maureen, Maud, Nicole, I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves. We have a little bit of time, and in previous interviews, you might have asked a question. Would love to.
I will. Maureen McGarrett Hall, and I'm lifetime resident in Belchertown. That's what intrigues me to be part of this. And I also have been at the town community newspaper for about 24 years now. So I know, just a lot about the town's history, where the town, we're growing rapidly. We're the sixth largest area town in Massachusetts. So we try and stay small, but everybody wants to come in because it's so gorgeous. So, that's kind of my little synopsis there.
Hi there. I'm Nicole Miner. I am a member of the Belchertown Select Board, also a lifelong resident of Belchertown. I actually just wanted to ask you one question, and if you did already mention this, I apologize. But what is your willingness to come out to Belchertown for a day, take a tour, maybe meet with members of the community?
For sure. Yeah, we haven't talked about it during this, but in my proposal, I did include a like 1 to 2 day trip out to Belchertown. So that's within the budget and scope, depending on reimbursables, all of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand people that can brand full towns, without seeing them in person personally. And again, talking to the people, and if we're able to do one of those pop-up events, I think that's, even better. So yeah, I would love to. I haven't been to Massachusetts much, so.
Maud, do you want to?
Sure. My name is Madhak Frencho. I'm the Creative Economy Coordinator for Belchertown. I've been working with the town for almost 2 years now, and with the mandate of realizing some of the local rapid recovery plan priorities as well as economic development priorities set forward in the community plan. And those include branding and some related pieces of that, like wayfinding, one place where it will be implemented as well. And I'm so excited that we are here and so happy to be able to hear from you today and everyone else here on this call.
Thanks, everyone. So, and I'll just name that Ed Knight is here and listening in as well. But Katie, do you have any questions for us?
I did have a couple, just when I was looking over everything that you guys have going on, and I'm glad you just brought up the wayfinding because you guys have a project going on right now, I believe, with the wayfinding. So how do you see potentially these two projects merging together? I looked briefly at the scope and the timeline of your wayfinding, and it looks like you might be in the design phase or soon. Do you see these coming together at all or totally separate?
I can field that one. Yeah. So Wayfind, we received a technical support grant from the state. And the wayfinding designers are often, who we're working with are often in the position of developing brand materials and also implementing them within wayfinding. And in this case, our scope with them, because we are working kind of in this committee independently to move forward a brand identity, what they're able to do is develop some of the on the ground material, like an audit of our local signage, utilize ongoing community engagement work that we've done over the last couple of years to understand what are kind of most valued sites, where are those priority locations for signage in town, working through the typology, all those kinds of things that I'm sure you're, as a planner, you're very familiar with. And they will be, we're working to align these timelines and projects so that deliverables from you go immediately to them for implementation into wayfinding. That will be realized next. It'll be one of the places that will kind of most quickly see the brand come to life in the physical environment.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. I was a little worried that that was a bit separate of a project. I was going to say, no, you have to, if you're already doing that big project.
Well, and I appreciate that that's on your radar because that's certainly something where we are working to ensure that there's alignment and this connection point so that deliverables from one go straight to the other.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. And that'll be a great, once they're all built, like it'll change the environment.
Maud and I had a meeting with the wayfinding team this morning to try to start getting things on track, but we've already determined that there should and definitely will be time for conversation with the wayfinding designers and the graphic designers once the hiring process starts. And that team is really fantastic in terms of making sure that like they're adjusting their timeline to accommodate ours since we're on a little bit tighter timeline.
Yeah.
So thank you for raising it. And yes, we are on it.
Good. I love that. Let's see. So I have like two more questions. Is that okay?
Mhm.
So a big kind of part with branding and just positioning, in the region is looking at peer cities and towns. Do you guys have kind of a list already or just an idea? I was doing a bit of research, looking at especially towns in or nearby Massachusetts that are very close to kind of the outdoors or a big water feature is the wrong word, but you know what I mean, like the reservoir. And I kept finding plenty, but then they all had the seal as their logo. So, which is great for them. But you guys are kind of looking to go to the next level. So I'm curious, just yeah, possible towns that are similar and or what you think about the whole seal thing in Massachusetts. Because it seems to be a thing. It like here it's not. So
Thing.
I'm just
It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a great question. Chris, did you unmute?
I am one person that can answer in my own opinions on things. Massachusetts is a very history-based town. We love that, we're one of the first places, the Plymouth Rock, all that stuff. And I think a lot of the people here are feel the same way. We are history-based, and the town seal is something that I think is important to us. And we've definitely seen a lot of people say the same thing in our Facebook chats and stuff like that. And it is something unique about Massachusetts that we have a town seal as well as the logos and stuff like that. That I think that a lot of us do appreciate. And again, this is just coming from my own opinion and sides of things. Um, as far as other towns to compare to, um, I could come up with a list, but I think it's tough. I think that Belchertown is really struggling to become its own identity. We've been sort of looked at as a drive-through town for a long time. We have a lot of roads that kind of like intersect, like major roads that intersect through Belchertown and kind of move on. And I think that we really want to get out of that reputation and become our own thing. Amherst is a town right over the border. It's a college town. It's big. It's got UMass and Smith, or not Smith, Amherst College and a whole bunch of others. And so, but like, and it's like one to compare us to, and it comes up a lot. But at the same time, like we're not Amherst, right? And we don't want to be Amherst. So it's tough to say like who we want to be, and even like this whole project came out of like Amesbury did a logo redesign. And we were like, yes, they did it. We could do it too. But I wouldn't say that we want the same logo as Amesbury, right? Like that design wasn't something that like resonated with us. It was just kind of like, oh, they did the process. We can do it too. So yeah, I think it's going to be a struggle because we want our own say in this.
Yeah. I like that I was gonna ask about Amherst too, just like I get the connection, with it being so close. And, when I was like reading through those two plans of yours, they do play a big part in like who comes to visit, right? Or just being the nearby those connections, people that live or work and go vice versa. So that'll be an interesting kind of junction to not plan to, but to listen to their feedback. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that was kind of my last question on my list, I think, for you all.
Great. Well, Katie, is there anything else that you want to share or need us to know before we wrap up?
I think we've covered it. I mean, I always kind of throw the note in, that it's a unique kind of situation getting to work with my firm. It's primarily myself. I have a couple others for capacity reasons if needed, but kind of gives that, closeness and constant contact, luckily. And then with my planning background and all my design work, I'm able to think about how this brand would, affect future downtown organizations, if there's kind of sub-branding or something like that, that would come out of the woodwork. Working on websites is another piece, and swag items for t-shirts or events, things like that. So, kind of with you guys every step of the game. And afterwards, if you would need anything else that builds off this project.
Thank you. Really appreciate your proposal, your work, taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. And if no one else in the committee has anything else, we'll just say thank you and
Thank you very much.
get back to you soon.
Thanks, Katie.
No problem. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Should I head out? This is my time. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your week.
You too.
Okay, so at this time, we'll move into public comment. I don't feel like we have any other public people here, so I'll count it down, 3, 2, 1. Hearing no more public discussion, we can move into our own discussion this time. I'll open it up to anybody that wants to start.
I'll start. I was very impressed with Katie. I feel like she was genuine, down to earth, also extremely confident in what she does. Like she clearly has significant background experience, and I think what she highlighted of being a designer with also like a municipal planner background is really key. Like she was bringing insights and ideas that a designer alone wouldn't have. She mentioned she's got all these repeat clients. I think that's huge, and that she would be our main point of contact and designer. Like we're not about to get handed off to, a team of people that we don't know. I mean, I could go on and on. I feel like she really nailed so many of those answers.
I'm going to go with Molly and say the exact same. I really, really was impressed. Not only from her website, but to meet her and get the concept that she really just has the background that's required to do this project. And when she talked about using, sub-branding, that will come into play.
I will jump in and say that I was not impressed at all. Just when the conversation started and she started, kind of referring to the imagery that we have on our website with the, welcome to Belchertown image, the town signs that everybody in Massachusetts has, as being our current logo, really made me think that she didn't necessarily do her homework ahead of time. And I was a little concerned that she would confuse, a street sign with a town logo.
Well, while I recognize that it's a street sign, we do kind of employ it in the logo space in certain contexts in lieu of the logo that we don't have maybe because of the the challenges that our current seal pose for digital applications. I saw you went unmuted though, Chris.
I mean, I just wanted to unmute because I realized I was mute, and this is a team discussion. I will say though that I sort of second that. Like I wasn't all that impressed. I was listening to a lot of like the technical answers, around like design and accessibility, and I don't know, like she just kind of like skimmed over the details on some of them that like the other guys, the other candidates got more into of like the black and whites and stuff like that, and really talking about accessibility, and I felt like I don't know, like I just didn't like get the same like excitement, the same like preparedness as the others did.
That could probably be just because she does it so much with other communities that to them it's an exciting opportunity, yet to her it's something she's most familiar with.
Yeah, that was kind of my impression too. I know her proposal says it starts with 2 to 3 black and white and then goes into 3 to 5 full logo designs and branding options, which I thought was very compelling. And I thought it was interesting. Like she mentioned the color, mentioned all the accessibility things, and I feel like maybe she was glossing over it because it's commonplace to her. One thing I thought that was unique that she mentioned around that was inclusivity around cost. Like that being a factor in accessibility is like, let's not choose a font that no one's going to be able to afford to use. Like, it's like, I appreciate that. Like you've worked with municipalities who don't have a huge budget to buy fonts. And I thought she did a lot of really interesting research, like knowing that we have a fair and a farmer's market and the wayfinding program, like the Quabbin. She was like looking at maps and things. I felt like she kind of spent some time digging into us a bit.
Yeah, maybe that was it, is that she just like, and I agree that the proposal of hers was amazing, right? Like it was one of the top ones that we looked at. So maybe it was just that like she was just glossing over some of the things because it's already been stated. Um, and to save time, which we said at the beginning that you can just gloss over certain things to do that. So
Did I hear correctly that I didn't quite understand how she collaborated with or suggested collaboration with the public?
So
She talked about having meetings, or didn't have town hall meetings, but something at fairs and stuff like that. But that doesn't work with the timeline.
So she suggested a survey. She also, in her proposal, I'll try to find it here, included um, a site visit for R&D, and she suggested doing a tour of the town to really understand the vibe and built environment over a 1 to 2 day visit. And what she suggested in our meeting was that what her pop-up, like her event, like other people refer to it as a forum, whatever, actually take place at an existing community event. So if there's a farmer's market, like do it in situ. So she's showing up to people where they are. So that was like her primary strategy. She said if that wasn't possible, that we could do a one-off event where she would be like the main attraction. But I think her goal was do this in a way that was really as accessible as possible. And I will echo, I think that her interview did not capture everything in the proposal. And it could have been, maybe I like over explained that she didn't have to be as robust in her answers, but her proposal is extremely detailed and answers a lot of the questions. But that's also something for us to know, right? Like if we need the designer to present things to the public, like maybe that's not her strength. Like she is a planner, it's a different skill set. And then she's also a designer. So like I think there's a lot of value to that combined skill set for this project. But this group can decide like if a presentation skill is better served, right? It's up to y'all. But she also included 3 to 4 virtual meetings with staff and stakeholders as part of it as well. So
Yeah, she offered to jump on any of the meetings that if we wanted her there.
Her budget is over, though, not by much, but she is over budget. And I know part of that is the unknown because she wants to get paid for actual expenses. When she comes out to do a site visit.
I did appreciate that. Well, she seemed to me to be the most flexible if we come back with changes. Her comment that, they wanted to change the train. She wasn't going to turn around and charge them for that. So I kind of did appreciate that compared with her being a little bit over budget. I'd rather have that flexibility versus being right at the $10,000.
Yeah, I got the sense of like a strong customer service orientation just in general. Like I'll collaborate with you in whatever way you want, on whatever platform you want. I will, be flexible with my deadlines to get you what you need. I want to meet people where they are. Like I got this, she's
You make
here
us feel like
serve.
I don't know.
I also appreciated her questions for us. She's the only one that came back with really thoughtful questions. Like she really, really cared. And that stood out to me. And I'll be honest with you, at the beginning, she kind of hurt my feelings a little bit when she called our seal bland, but she quickly turned it around for me, in terms of, she's going to be the sole designer. So she is our dedicated person. I liked how candid she was about issues that she's had with other clients and how candid she was about our timeline being short. Um, I also liked that she brought up the employees in town. She said that it was really key for whatever we come up with to be accessible for town employees. And I don't think anybody else brought up that component of it. So just a few extra things that stood out to me, in regard to her.
She also talks about in the proposal, she offers, just have it up in front of me, 3 to 5 full logo and brand designs as part of the development. And that had come up as a very, very, very green flag in some of our other conversations where there were other designers that offered too. So in terms of like the quantity of work, in addition to what Nicole said about being flexible and willing to make changes, there's still value. And the other thing I wanted to flag in her proposal, and I'll just share screen so that y'all can see it as well. I'm very impressed by her references.
Yeah.
It's the director of communications and public engagement for a city. It's the president and CEO and the executive director of Metro Mayor's Caucus. It's like a very comparable, client. Women in Planning and Development in Chicago is someone she did branding for. I think these are really great references, and obviously we'll have to talk to them and see if they give ringing endorsements. But this is a very strong list of previous clients if we are assigning value to experience with municipalities and rural communities.
I mean, that's kind of the reason I'm in favor, because she has the history. That's why I feel her comfortability in the meeting spoke for itself, because this is what she does. And where we can match it against the excitement of the other ones that we have interviewed that didn't have as extensive resumes in regards to working with other communities. And I think that actually, as well as, not being a strong presenter, is not really what I thought we were looking for. We're looking for a designer who has been able to put a message out from a community and actually relay that message. And I feel like everything she has to offer is, unless the only one thing, like Kate said, is budget, and budget's a big deal. So if you were able to reach back and say, we are really considering you and we are curious, can you meet this mark? And, look for a return on that question. That's the mark we need to
I
meet.
do think we need to get back to like discussing just this vendor, and maybe pull up her scorecard before we get into making the conversation more about generally who do we plan on hiring, because that's kind of where it feels like we're heading, and we haven't really done her scorecard yet, which isn't fair to anybody or to the process.
Can I just jump in really quick though about the budget? Is that we do have the budget. The RFP was like $10,000 plus or minus, right? And because there is wiggle room, there is more budgeted than that $10,000, as it's not a locked number at $10,000.
Is her total, is that including the 1,000 she put for like expenditures that we really don't know? So if she didn't visit, it would be significantly less, and it's just, yeah, that flex.
I don't know if we can get away with somebody from like out of state and not have them visit, like,
Yeah, no, I'm not saying she shouldn't. I think she should. There's just that like unknown component.
I think that the total cost is, I think we have like 1,100 and change. It's not a huge amount over, but I believe, like, I didn't put anyone forward whose proposal we could not afford.
Okay.
I believe in reducing scope to meet costs, but I wasn't yeah. She fits within our budget. We can afford that if we want to. We don't have to want to, but we can afford it. But
Right,
Could
like
we
if we
also
said
counter
do,
offer?
oh,
Sorry, Molly. Could we also counter offer?
well, I think we have to spend that money down. It's not like
Yeah.
anything else, right, Maud?
Yeah, this is ARPA money, so it
Yeah,
was
no,
encumbered.
understood.
Yeah, if we don't spend it on costs here, I think it would have to go towards potentially other services. I'm not exactly sure. I think that that would be a question for accounting around how things that are encumbered can be potentially shuffled, or if at all.
Okay.
But yes, I think we can figure out what our number is, like our firm number, and say, this is what we can do.
yeah, and it might mean instead of 3 to 5 full design concepts, it's like 2 to 4 or something like that.
But to Kate's question, if we want to turn to the scorecard, just to frame our conversations, knowing that these are like non-binding, just as a way to jot information down and have things to look at side by side. We did this with everyone else. Boldness and originality of their portfolio work.
I'm going with a 10.
Yeah. She sold in a brown brand. Like, that's hard.
Told him a what brand?
It was brown. One of the examples.
Oh,
But it worked. But like brown and yeah.
It's difficult.
That's a 10.
I'm okay with that.
Previous track record for refreshing municipalities or rural communities.
I think that's 10.
10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Experience working with clients with a similar profile.
10.
I
gonna go
don't
with 9.
necessarily, I don't know. I think it's closer to an 8 personally. Like she has a lot of municipalities, but nothing close to our profile.
That's where I think the North Country example.
Yeah, like I think North Country was a great example. But I don't necessarily think that that's close to our municipality. Because that was combining a bunch of other organizations into one new organization.
I hear 8, I hear 10.
9.
Yeah,
Split.
maybe we go 9.
Happy medium.
Unless others feel strongly.
And then we're going to like consolidate these scorecards, right? And then we
Yes.
can, relative to the others, we can adjust scores.
Yes. Not binding. This is just for us to kind of do a temperature check. Ability to engage with community members and incorporate town feedback and vision.
I'll say 9 or 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I have to go with 10. She's willing to travel here. She's willing to hold events. She's willing to do, I think a lot of I think the majority of them were willing to come. And they received a 10.
I think one of the things that and I'm jumping the gun, that when we start comparing the different groups, that like I think they're all willing to come and they're all willing to engage and incorporate feedback and whatnot. But like I do think that we're going to see that there's a leg up to the groups that are closer and are going to potentially make 2, 3, 4 trips up here, as opposed to the people that are traveling and will make like a weekend out of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
I think, these
wonder-
questions were kind of before the interviews.
Well, okay. So how do we want, before we move into parallel comparison?
I'm okay with 9.
9 or 10?
Yeah, 9's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Depth of insight regarding the opportunity or challenge here.
How much, I think I missed this one when we were interviewing her. How much did we spend talking about revamping the logo versus the seal?
I don't think we've really made that clear in any of the interviews.
Yeah, I don't feel like we have either. Like, it's just, it's been more in the forefront of my mind today after our meeting earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah, she noted that there should be some parallels. They should feel connected in some way. But we didn't, yeah, get into the specifics.
I think she gave a version, and not to compare, but she did say what a lot of people said in a very general way, which was that the seal is the place to like celebrate and acknowledge history, and the logo is the place to modernize. Like that has been the through line that I think everyone has pretty much acknowledged, and she did acknowledge that.
Do you think she sees a difference between the seal and the logo?
She acknowledged in the proposal that they're separate deliverables.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking for that in there.
And then I think that she made the assumption, which could be because we use it on our website, that the signage is our logo now, and that we're doing a new logo. We're not using the street sign anymore. And we're up. And she did actually clarify. I've been hypersensitive to this too, Kate. She did clarify the updating of the seal. And I got the impression that she was clear on the fact that we're not throwing the seal away and revamping it.
Yeah,
That
I
was
found
my
it on
impression
page
I got
10.
from her, because I think she's done this so many times that she knows what it takes. But
yeah, I found it, like I said, I found it on page 10.
okay, great. Anyone have a general idea of a score for depth of insight regarding the opportunity challenge?
10.
To 10.
I'm still at an 8.
Any other thoughts? Then we can do quick averaging.
Or the 10 side.
9.
Sure.
0.5.
Just go with a 9 so we can.
Okay.
9, yeah, whatever. Just so we can move on to the,
yep. Depth
to
of thoughtfulness and approach to community engagement.
9.
9.
9.
When I hear 3, that sounds like consensus to me. So
yeah, that's good.
Meets our objectives in time frame.
10.
10.
Yeah, she had a timeline in here that was a little brief, but met what we're looking for.
Clear and effective collaboration model.
9.
This one, yeah, I don't know. I think this is where I think maybe a little bit lower, because like it was like, it wasn't like she was throwing out a model for it. It was just kind of like, whatever you guys need from me, I'll be there, right? And I'll do it. Like, and I can be on whatever meetings you want, or events or whatever. Like, I'll just be there. And so it wasn't like she was coming with a plan and like, this is how we do it and this is what's done. It's more of just like, yeah, I'll work with you, you know. So I don't know. I feel like I would score this one a little bit lower.
Thank you.
Like maybe a 7.
Mm-hmm. I would be okay with lowering it.
Yeah,
I understand where Chris is coming from. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay. 7.
Okay.
Value.
Did anyone else go over budget? I think if someone else went over budget, we should score it similarly.
I think there was one, right?
I thought there was. I don't remember who, though.
I know. In the initial process, we pulled somebody out because they were over. They went to like 12 grand.
Oh gosh.
But I don't think out of the 4 anybody has gone over.
And so I just did the math. We have about like 11 and a half
allocated
for this. and there was wiggle room kind of by design as a contingency.
Yeah, but the RFP was put out there with a budget of 10,000.
And I think that the language included alongside that number also included that there was some flexibility.
So Magnifico came in right at 9,900. Do we remember how we scored them?
I'm gonna pull them all up for side by side.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna suggest that if there's an impression, to your point, Kate, about not being comparative yet, just getting through this.
Sure.
Yeah, and like we'd have to also compare the value of what you're getting. Multiple rounds of black and white and then multiple rounds of a full design. Like that could be a lot more than somebody else.
So I wasn't on the call when you guys talked about Scout, and they were 10 to 12,000.
Yeah, I
How
just
did that
found
go
that
over?
too. Quite a bit more.
I'm gonna suggest that we put an 8 here and move on to the next section so that we can get into the discussion.
Sure.
That's where we're going. Credibility and quality of the team.
So the only concern with it being a one-person team, right? Like if she, gets really sick or something mid-process, like she does have a couple other people working with her. Like I think she's credible, but there's not a whole huge team supporting her coming into it. So maybe a 7.
So on credibility and quality, I don't know that we are, I think we can have a separate conversation about a solo practitioner versus a team and a firm, right? But happy to put a 7 here unless others.
Yeah, like if we're just taking her, like let's look at her at face value. She's a planner with design experience and she seems highly credible and qualified to do this work. And then the separate thing that we can discuss is, are we comfortable with it being just her?
I did go to her website, and although she's listed as the sole proprietor, she's got like 10 collaborators under her. I would like to think, just from a professional perspective, that she'd be having one of those collaborators step in if she did get sick, somebody else to back her up.
And she
It's an
does
interesting point because on her proposal, she showed 2 other people as being part of her team.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say when I submit proposals, I've got about 15 contractors that I work with as part of Arts Equity Group, and I only include the folks that are bios and experience are best suited to the project when I submit proposals. I don't include my whole team, right? So I wonder if she chose these 2 people and said, hey, if we get this RFP, are you on board to support it? That's on the background how I do. But that's also, we can also ask those as follow-up questions if we need. But thoughts on credibility and quality of proposed team? 7 or unclear if
I'm
that's
going with 10 if you want to meet in the middle at 8. Does anybody else have any input?
Yeah, we
I'd
can
be
be in
on
the
the-
middle of 8.
Okay.
chemistry and compatibility.
This is another one where I don't think it scored well for me. I just didn't get the same, like the one group where there's a lot of hype, another one just conveyed like we've got you, this will be handled. I mean, like she does have like that credibility is there, but just the conversation didn't really like the chemistry, right? It didn't hit me.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't feel any connection like with her or her to the project. And, like Danielle said, maybe that was playing it down. And she's also in the unfortunate circumstance of being the 4th person we're interviewing too. But I definitely didn't get any strong click for chemistry with her.
I was getting all sorts of like Midwestern quiet confidence. And I say this as a Midwesterner. And also she made my heart sing talking, like asking a question about wayfinding. So I'll put that out there.
I did sort of wonder if it was just like that St. Louis vibe. Yeah.
Not Canadian.
Yeah, 100%.
I just personally feel like, we've interviewed a lot of great people, and a lot of them had some, amazing dynamic personalities, which is a great skill for presentation, and it's a great skill for communication. But we're actually, and being in a sales field myself, it's great, but what you're really looking for is the core job of somebody who can be able to handle the type of work that we're here interviewing for. And I have to, speak and say that although she was humbled through her presentation, that shouldn't remove anything from her skill. She seemed amazing. She
Yeah.
seemed confident and calm, where, don't get me wrong. Oh, here's my dog barking now, but that's how she came across to me, as very confident, because she's handled this type of work before. And I think that having somebody who has more knowledge than a couple of the other designers that we have interviewed, in regards to when it's coming to you're actually presenting for a town. It's a big deal. That's my take.
So I'm hearing a lot of love and a lot of middle. So is that a 7, 8?
I'll throw in an 8.
Go 8.
Typically turns out to be an 8.
Okay. Passion for the project?
8 or 9. I feel like she did a ton of research and like clearly like wants this, ready to do the work.
Yeah, the fact that she researched Amherst, and the fact that she looked at towns around us that might match us, and it just really feels like she's ahead of it. She's one step ahead.
Yeah, our proposal has all these photos. Like where did you even find these? Just from
Yeah,
town.
I go 10.
They're on our
Yeah,
Facebook pages.
I'm going 10.
Okay.
10?
Yes.
Okay. Exceeding expectation, goes the extra mile in their proposal or presentation.
She was marked as number 1 for a reason.
I would go like a 7 here. Like when we asked for, examples, she didn't show us anything we hadn't already seen before.
Well, others didn't either.
Yeah, this is hard because we are very much comparing her to everybody else. Like it's rough to be the last.
That's true.
On the face value of the proposal, we loved it the most, I think.
So I'm hearing 7 and 10. 8,
Split the
9.
Nope.
9?
Go 9.
Okay. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to open up for y'all to discuss cumulatively, and I'm going to try to join everything into one spreadsheet just so that we can see. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to
I know.
bring everything together to the extent, maybe different tabs, but I'm going to try to join them, but open up for discussion.
Yeah, the template it has the 3 columns, so you just have to add one more column. Let's see.
Yep, I'll work on that. But I would just say generally, usually when I'm doing deliberation, I will look at score, and then whoever bottom 50 is, I'll kind of automatically eliminate, and top 50 is what comes to discussion. So we don't have scores, but if there's like any one that folks are clear on eliminating, that could be a useful starting point. Or if anyone wants to propose eliminating anyone from discussion, and then focusing attention and energy on the top 2 or top 3, that could be helpful.
I would propose that we remove Magnifico from conversation.
I agree.
I agree.
Hey, look, we got something done.
Danielle, I want to ask real quick. Are you merging all of these into localities, or are you creating a new scorecard?
I was creating a new one.
Thank you. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just because in the notes I'm pointing directly to each different file for additional documents for the meeting minutes.
Yep. Okay, and I'm only going to put locality, scout, and swoon into that final sheet, which is great. So
I want to talk real quick about those intangibles, that whole section at the bottom while Danielle's putting all this together. And it's something that we need to decide, I think, on whether or not that section is important or not, because like that, the chemistry, the passion, the credibility, all of that stuff, I think it's important when we're looking at hiring somebody, but I think it's going to be important through the project and whether we're going to be putting this designer in front of the town, right? Or if we're going to be like, are we going to put the designs in front of the town and say, this is what we've decided on with this designer? Or are we going to say, here is our designer and let them speak to their ideas, right? And you know, is their hype and their passion the right connection to the folks in town that we think is going to connect and reverberate? Do we think that they're going to be able to do that? In which case, intangibles should be kind of counted equally to the approach and to the qualification, or are we thinking that if we're going to be doing it, right, if we're going to do the presentation and we're going to be sort of the hype for this whole project, then intangibles kind of sits a little bit lower because like we just only need them to like match our energy, right, as a committee, and then their design, their qualification and approach really is what scales higher.
That's a great point, Chris, and I guess I
is.
don't really know the answer, but it would be easy to scale down these numbers if that helps us. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
a good point.
That's a really good question. Like, who, if we were to present this, like if someone from the committee was to do it, who would that person be?
And who would we present to? Like,
Open
who's the
meeting.
audience? Open meeting like this where people don't attend?
No, I mean, well, I mean, I think it would be a
I
bigger
think it's
thing,
the
right?
timing. I mean, we're in the midday of work. If it was an evening timing, that might be different.
Yeah.
and there will probably need to be a presentation at the town meeting where the seal is voted on.
Yeah, we're gonna have the town hall meeting to discuss this. Somebody's gonna have to get up in front of, I mean, it's usually only like 170 people out of the 15,000 we have, but you know, someone's still gonna have to get up there and give a very brief, you know, a hype to it, but it's gonna have to be done.
Yeah, I don't see that as being a designer getting in front of our town, especially if it's better to be in person, because that's a lot to demand. And we're going to be talking more about like the strategy and the rationale and explaining the budget and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, and then here's the design. Like maybe that person would weigh in on that piece of it, but I don't know. I can't imagine the designer like leading that conversation.
So I do think it would be helpful. And one of the things that I think we ask, and I think everyone at this stage is willing to do, is to have a webinar in the way that Amesbury had their webinar, where the designer, in conversation with someone from this committee or myself, walks through the rationale and the logic of the proposal, that we have that for the record, and so that we can share it with people when they are joining as members of the staff. So I'm happy. I think when I was brought on, that was something that I agreed to, right? Like, so I see that as part of my scope. I do think in terms of town meeting, you folks are the ones with the best credibility, and having the committee members present, I'm happy to provide support. And I think the designer could provide support. But I think your confidence and enthusiasm for whatever the final output is going to be the thing that matters most.
So I have a question of clarification there. So we absolutely have to vote at the town meeting on the updated seal, but there is no requirement to vote on the logo at the town meeting. Are we looking to have both of these items brought forth in the town meeting, or simply the seal? Because introducing the logo and introducing the updated seal, I see as two obviously they're related, but they're two very separate things to introduce.
I think logo is going to be up to select board if they want to put that on the warrant. But to your point, no, there's no requirement for the logo to go to town meeting.
And I think that kind of brings it back to the conversation. So if it's not going to town meeting and there isn't a warrant for it, how is it being presented to the town?
So this is something, Keith, that Maud and I started conversation with the wayfinding crew on.
Mhm.
And I think it's a communications question. And I think that like it's something that we should bring up in our regular meeting, but I don't think it's going to be on the designer to do alone. I think there will be a press release. I think there will be an outreach strategy. And I think all of the content that the designer provides will be included in what we press and what we share. But I
So
don't
we would more or less just release it without having the designer involved to do any so there would be no question and answer with it then.
I mean, I
Because
think we could do a public webinar that we record. I don't know that if there's a desire to do that in person, I think it's going to need to be a PowerPoint anyway. So it makes sense for accessibility to do it as a webinar and say, like, here's a link to the webinar, or like, here's a press release. We did this thing. If you want to learn more about it, come to our webinar and hear directly from the designer, ask questions. The committee will be there to answer your questions as well. I could see that.
okay, so the designer would go to whatever meeting and answer questions. That's what I'm trying to gather here.
Yeah, I think all of them said they would.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, I think we would eventually have just that big meeting and invite the whole town to show up, whether it's online or in person. Like I think it's maybe not a bad idea to have like some people in, like we do the town hall auditorium and have a big TV up that has like the design and the designer talking if they have to be remote, or if it's somebody local, they can come up. We should try to do something like that when it gets more of the time of like getting that full input. But yeah, again, I don't. I think the designer, yeah, is just going to do their bit and have to answer a couple of questions. But otherwise, like, it's going to be us as the committee to get the town involved and make sure that they're happy with it.
Okay. So that kind of goes back to, I was trying to circle it back to like what you were saying with the intangibilities and the chemistry and passion for the project and stuff like that, and how much that actually weighs into this.
Right. And I think that because of that, like, so we have the little numbers there, the 35, 35, 30. And I wonder if actually the intangibles is a little bit lower, more of like a 20 or something like that. And just scaling up the qualification and approach a little bit higher.
So when I think about any of these designers coming face to face with residents, the one that stands out the most for me was Swoon, because I felt like we all kind of had a chemistry with them. They were really I don't know. I mean, they were easy to talk to. They were easy to converse with. But for me, there's this looming thing over my head that really worries me about going with a company that is not in the United States, and how that's going to be received by residents. And so when we talk about those intangibles, Swoon just like jumps out at me. But then I go, oh no, but they're not here in the US.
Right, and if there's any complications, I thought of that as well.
Not even well, yes, complications, but like how are people in town going to perceive that?
Yeah, and I think that would be on us to answer those questions and whys. And I think, we've had this discussion a few times that like, good designers are good designers, and we should be able to look outside of our local realm, especially if we agree that their qualifications are there. I agree that it is going to be a thing. It is going to have to be something that we discuss and we talk about, and it could be the tiebreaker. I definitely think that that's up there for me to say that, like, okay, if we have two that are absolutely tied, but one of them is 3 time zones away in another country, then like I got to go with the more local person, but I think that if they really shine, if they really stand out, then I don't think that's going to be an issue for me.
Mhm.
Danielle, can you zoom the scorecard a little bit?
Yes, and I apologize if something is
Thank you.
I'm working with Molly to try to make sure that this is actually working, but
Yeah, the numbers in the qualification row aren't quite right. Can you make me an editor and I'll just change the formula a little bit?
yes, thank you. Sorry, I just
You're good.
when I'm sharing screen, it's a little.
Just like to mention, we've got 9 minutes left on this meeting.
Yeah, and I do have a hard stop at 4:30 for another meeting.
I do as well. I'm not sure that we're going to get to a consensus here tonight. I think I need to make a recommendation that we have another meeting to continue this discussion.
I think that's in the best interest. Like I understand like we have a time frame and when we've said we're going to award the contracts and everything, but I also don't think we should be rushing through these. And I personally would appreciate a little bit of time between making the decision and having a chance to actually digest the meeting that we just had with Katie.
I mean, how is it that Magnifico is disqualified so quickly? I'm just asking that question only because it all of a sudden in a minute and a half that interview is gone and we're not even talking about it.
I would be interested to see how they total up against the other ones. I know I was actually kind of in agreement with Magnifico being eliminated too, but I think we should see the numbers.
Well, I think having gone through a couple interview processes with the town and otherwise, like when it comes to a gut feeling where enough people in the group say that like, yeah, I agree with that like it's fine to just move ahead, right? And that we should feel okay with doing that. When it comes to the numbers that we have with Magnifico, they're hitting actually lower side of things overall, comparably. And maybe it is because they went first and we were a little harsher with scoring things. We'll see this.
And time goes by too, and you forget, some of the things that they said. I had that gut feeling too, Chris. I just want to see how they measure up.
So they're not in the top. They're not in the top yet, but they are here. You can see them side by side. And I would like to say, for what it's worth, as someone who's going to have to work extremely closely with our finalists, I thought the scores for Magnifico were generous.
I'm just I personally would like some more time to review at least the minutes, the some of my notes and have a better so that I can have a better conversation with this. We've all talked about a lot of stuff all day today, and we've had 4 or 5 days in between the last interviews, so I think it makes sense to maybe a meeting next week or something.
So can we take a few minutes to try to schedule that?
Absolutely. Because we have time with the clerk to schedule that. We just have to make an agenda as to what we're going to do and figure that out.
So for next week, I have limited availability if I need to be in the room. I'm also this is something that others can produce and happy to hand over Zoom information, etc. But I have extremely limited availability. I do have time on the 10th and the 11th, which is where I think we had scheduled stuff, but
so they're canceled.
Pardon?
We've requested them to be canceled.
Right. So we can, and I'm just speaking about my calendar.
I would like to see us maybe meet on the 11th, with having some time in there to make this decision, because isn't the decision supposed to be made for the 14th?
We had on our timeline is to hire that person by the 14th. So
yeah, so we would need to make the decision, I would say, by the 11th, so we can negotiate with them if necessary over the next 2 days to have them hired for the 14th.
We've missed the filing deadline to get an agenda in for the 10th, just so we know.
Can we do 10 a.m. on the 11th? Is that something that works for folks? 9 or 10 a.m.?
I cannot be there that time.
No, I could
Doesn't
do
work.
9 to 9:30.
I
But
can do any time, you know, or 11 or later.
I can't do 2 to 4. 2 to 4.
I'm pretty much open that whole day.
what about noon? Did that seem like a time? Works for me.
I'm okay with noon.
Would you like me there?
Yeah.
Do you have to be able to open the meeting since it's the same meeting link all the time? How would that work?
I'm not sure. We might have to do a different Zoom.
It has to be included in the agenda, I think, when you submit it.
Yeah, but that's easy as changing a link.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, is there a better day to if that's the case? I mean,
Am I the only one that can't do 9 to 10? Because maybe we can try to move something.
I can't do 9 to 10.
Sorry, somebody else can't.
I can't do 9 to 10.
Okay.
Can we do 10? Can you do 10? 10:30?
do another day in the week. Like, can we do Thursday?
So I am blocked. If I am not required, then Thursday is totally fine. I am blocked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wednesday through Friday of that week because we kind of preset my time. So unfortunately, I cannot. You can do 8 a.m. On those days or in the evening late. Or I can try to move some things to make 12 o'clock on Tuesday the 11th work if that works for everyone else.
That works for me.
Okay, so then can we just move forward with that and use the agenda to submit that to the town clerk for Tuesday the 11th? And I'll make it work.
Is everybody good
Appreciate
with
that, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're important to have.
Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
It's tough scheduling for everybody, but I appreciate the flexibility, Danielle.
And for making the agenda, is just to clarify, is this something that you all want me to make? Do you want to make it? We've been going back and
Chris
forth.
and I can coordinate it. We can get together and do that and figure it out.
Yeah, and if you want to go back and I believe that all the interviews are recorded, you can go back and watch them. And I don't know if there's a link handy for that.
I will send an email, probably not today, but tomorrow with recaps of where all our scorecards are, where the recordings are. I'll send a calendar. I'm going to put a calendar invite on hold now for us.
I appreciate all your work.
Should we vote on those? I know we can't do it today, but should we have it set up so that the minutes are voted on before we actually make the decision?
Do you guys need me to stay on this call? Because I really do need to get to that 4:30 meeting to close this. I'm sorry. Okay.
I think we're all set, right? Yeah, we're all
All
set.
right.
Unfortunately, I also need to go, and I believe that if I leave, the meeting will end. So if possible, can we put meeting minutes on the agenda for our next regular session?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
I think we have to do some
motion to close.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
going to ask for a motion to close the meeting.
Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need to say the name and
Paul Robinson, aye.
Aye.
Chris Martin, aye. I think that was
Thanks,
everyone.
Janet, guy.
Okay.
So
Thanks,
with
everyone.
that,
I'll follow up.
so moved.
Okay.